welcome back to the White Coat Club. This is Lindsay and Nicole, and we're both counselors at Moon Prep. And today we're going to talk all about the optional Brown admissions video. And we're also going to be covering some timelines and some ideas about what you should be including in your video. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more great content about direct med and college admissions news. Okay, so I guess first it's important always to cover what is the Brown admissions video. Nicole, what do you usually tell kids about the Brown admissions video?
Yeah, I'm excited for this topic. I love this. I feel like it's for us like a nice welcome kind of break in the mix of
Yeah.
essays. Uh, but essentially, the Brown video is kind of an introduction. It has nothing to do with the PLME program specifically. It's an introduction, an opportunity to kind of tell the admissions team more about you, kind of like your voice, give information behind the application that you have submitted, maybe like some additional insights into your life. And it's essentially just a 2-minute personal video, kind of talking about who you are and why you're interested in attending Brown.
And they do call it optional, but
Mm-hmm.
these students especially, it should never be considered optional. And they do actually say for like PLME students, it is like highly encouraged. And I mean, it makes sense too if
Yes.
you think about it. They get like 4,000 applications. They're accepting, what is it, like 60 to 90 students per year. These kids are all going to be awesome. Well, a lot of these kids are going to be awesome. You're going to be fighting out against really tough crowds. And so, like, these small little details about what you do with your application really can be a make or break. So, if like there's a student with similar stats, similar caliber of like essays, like, similar goals, they like really fit the vibe of Brown and like what they're looking for in their student. If one student maybe does submit that video and the other one doesn't, I mean, that could be the reason why the student who submitted gets chosen, gives them more chances to showcase personality, gives them more chances to showcase maybe a different side of their activities that they weren't able to include in all those Brown essays. So it is like I think a good opportunity just to demonstrate a little bit more interest in Brown too.
Absolutely. And I kind of feel like it's like you could use the analogy of like buying something like online without like seeing pictures or something, like without really like seeing it and being able to like, I don't know, look at like the videos and like the reviews and stuff like that. Like it's like why would you just let them go in blindly if like they're accepting this like whole other feature that you could give them about
Yeah.
you?
Really come alive. That's such a good point. And Brown does not do interviews. So this is like your only chance for them to hear your voice, to like really see you. And so yeah, take that chance.
Yeah. Like buying a house. I don't know. Like, wouldn't you want to see like the pictures and the videos and like all this stuff? And like if you're looking at two that are like the same square footage, the same neighborhood, the same everything, like again, same stats as another student, but one of them you could see and like
Hmm.
really get a feel for, and like one of them you can't. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of easy to make that decision.
It does. Yeah, I think you're totally right. It's a good way to put it because it is extra work. It definitely does take time. It's only
Hmm.
minutes, but it's not like you can just film it for 2 minutes and be done. You have to make a script and you have to film, maybe do voiceovers, you have to get pictures, and we'll talk a lot about this later on. But it does take time, but it's definitely worth the effort to just really change your.
Absolutely. And I also think they may question, like, well, why wouldn't you go ahead and do it? If this was really your top school, really somewhere you're super interested in, like, why would you not? So
Yeah, completely
basically,
agree.
it's not optional. If Brown
Yeah.
is truly something you want to do, definitely put in the effort and do it.
Uh-huh. So, I mean, the good thing about the Brown video too is the rules are quite broad. Like, you really don't have to
Hmm.
follow a certain format. Like, the only real rule that they say is that it has to start with you saying, like, hi, my name is, insert your name from your high school, the name of your high school. And so, after that, what you do is totally up to you. How you say it, what you say, if you use like other media, if it's just you sitting in front of the computer and talking, it's a curated script, like unrehearsed, but you have like a general idea of what you might want to talk about. That's totally fine because they're not really going to be looking at the production quality. Like, we're not expecting this to be like directed
Like
and
a
produced
Pixar
by.
movie.
Yeah, exactly. anything crazy. I mean, I've seen some really cool ones that we'll talk about later, but it doesn't have to be. Um, they just recommend that you record it via landscape so that, the admissions officers don't have to like tilt their head to watch the video. They might be less likely to watch it, the whole thing in, its entirety if they have to keep turning their head. So make it easy for them. And then just make sure you have good lighting. I feel like that's
Yeah.
something hopefully this generation is like really good about, is like lighting in videos. Like we don't have anything to worry about there, but you want to make sure you're seen, like you're not just like a shadow
Hmm.
in the picture.
Yeah. It's really cool. And we'll get into it, but we've seen like probably every kind of style you could possibly do for this video. I think they're all pretty cool and unique in their own way. So you can definitely kind of get creative with it. And in the style that you choose, kind of like show off your personality there too.
Yeah.
And then the other kind of rule, I guess, it cannot be longer than 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
And then some kids too, like will get very, very, again, similar to an essay, like they will get it to exactly 2 minutes or like a minute and 59 seconds. You don't want to make it a minute. You want to get it like really as close to that 2 minutes as possible.
Yeah. Now for the Brown video, when do you suggest kids start working on it? Obviously, if you applied early decision, your your deadline was in November. It's already
Mhm.
passed. You can't submit it if you applied early decision, but for your regular decision kids, do you think now is a good time to get started on it?
Yeah, I mean, this is something, even if you're younger and you're listening, this is something you can kind of start doing really even over the summer.
Mhm.
Um, you know the main things about you that you'd like to share. You may not know the exact topics for your essays or anything or what you're going to choose to write about, but um, I always say like sometimes parents are, a little like kind of antsy and want to get started and want to get moving. Well, this could be a job for some parents. You may want to start incorporating some videos and photos of you younger. If you're going to talk about how you've done ballet, or if you talked about how you've always loved to cook or things like that, like they may have videos and clips and pictures of you doing these things, and that's totally appropriate to put in the videos. So you can kind of start compiling some of those files like whenever, as early as the summer. So then once you kind of have written down or at least indexed what topics you're using for your essay prompts, then you can kind of start to say, okay, this is almost like another supplemental essay. Let's start to maybe outline at least what we want to say in our script and what we want to talk about. And then that's where you can start to pull those images, those videos, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, I think also in terms of like timeline, so you submit by the due date if you're doing regular decision or early decision, whichever. And then you have, what is it, 10 days to submit the video.
I think it's
And I
five,
think,
actually.
is it only 5? I
Five.
think like the number one red flag is people will like, oh, well, I'll just submit it and then I'll do the video.
Yes. Yeah.
I've definitely had kids say that to me where again, like I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, like students in this generation are really great with videos
Mhm.
and like with like TikTok and all that stuff, but like this is not something you should be whipping together.
Yeah, I just looked it up. The video should be received, it looks like 1 week after the deadline.
Mm, okay,
You
we were
have
both wrong.
yeah.
Right in the middle.
It goes by real quick too. This could take you some time. Like, I mean, I know how much like digital clutter I have, and like trying to find pictures of me as a child would take me a full day just doing that. And so the time does go by really quick. So I think like the sooner you start, the sooner the better it is. And if you have like sometimes kids will want to include videos of them at like their different extracurriculars and things like that. But if you wait until, January 3rd, you might be on winter break and not doing those activities. So you can't be like, taking a picture of you, volunteering or whatever it might be. So by planning ahead a little bit, you can also get like all the like media that you might want.
Yes. I remember like maybe 2 years ago, I had a student who was like, I really want to get like a clip of me talking like on the baseball field because it's like a huge part of my life. And I was like, love it. So great. But it kind of got kicked, the can kind of got kicked down the road, didn't do when he said he was going to do it. And then it was like a 3-day storm. So we didn't want to go outside. And it's like, okay, we're getting a little into crunch time here. So yeah, do stuff early Always.
Always, yeah, it always takes longer than you think, and things will happen. So you don't have to like necessarily put it all together, but like I think compiling information. So I mean, for any like juniors that are listening, or parents of juniors or sophomores or freshmen, you can start to think about these things. And I definitely had some kids who visited Brown over the summer. And so whenever they went to Brown, I told them to like, maybe take some pictures of them around campus, and maybe those will be things that they'll include
Hmm.
in their Brown video or whatever it might be. But,
Yeah,
if you're not thinking about it early, you might have visited and then not have taken enough pictures or not the right pictures or whatever it might be, and don't have it. But yeah, think about this. It's not too early to think about it, essentially.
exactly.
And I think like those super creative ideas do take time to cultivate, which I mean should come as really no
Hmm.
surprise. It's the same thing for essays. A really beautifully creative essay, I mean, I suppose it could be created overnight, but usually they are not. Usually those take weeks, months of like kind of effort and working on. You probably won't need to do so much for your Brown video, but definitely take the time to come up with an idea. It doesn't have to be something wildly creative. We'll talk about them. But I think, coming up with content that's unique, that hasn't already been showcased. Brown has a lot of essays. Brown Pleme has even more essays. And so you are showcasing them a lot of who you are already through the essays and your activities and your personal statement. You don't want your whole essay to just be a repetitive repeat of your what was in your essays. So, of course, some things might be repeated. Like, you might talk about like, research and then showcasing videos of you doing research or whatever it might be. It might be you talking about how you want to go to Brown. Like you're gonna of course tell them that you want to go to Brown in your essays because they have a prompt that asks that. So, there might be some overlap, but you don't want everything to be the exact same as the stuff that you already told them.
Yeah. And then this is your ability to get creative. Within the prompts, you can be a little bit creative in your essays, but the word count is not huge in most of the Brown prompts. And like, you kind of got to stick to what they're asking you. But this is
Yeah.
the time and the place to be creative and show like that total other side to you. And we said we were going to give you some examples of like what students have done and, how they've used just like the media format of this to like be creative. What was it last year? The student that started it with the kind of ratatouille
Yeah.
intro of that movie, and it was kind of like, you're probably wondering how I ended up here, and it's like the rat being thrown out the window or whatever, and then it kind of got into their life and like but it was just they kind of like backtracked of like, well, who am I, how did I get here, kind of thing. And like that was just a creative way to start it off. And um we've had other ones who will do like a day in the life, and they'll start off and they'll kind of like use a lot of transitions and do like different outfit choices, like going different places, um like talking about the different kind of things to do, almost looking like an avatar kind of thing, video game character. But I mean, there's tons of other things. What were some of your favorites?
Some of the ones that I mean, I feel like funny always kind of sticks in your head longer too. And so one that did kind of do a day in the life, but it was like during the pandemic. And so it was like the day in the life in quarantine. And one of the things that he talked about was like, oh, I do like a staring contest with like my dog. And then he shows like him and his bulldog. Just, it's so silly, but it like made me laugh out loud. And then he also was like, oh, because I've been quarantined alone, I've had a lot of free time in my hands and I, didn't have any friends, like interactions with my friends. So I made my own friend. And he was like really into animation. And so then he like had on the screen, he animated his little like, imaginary friend, and kind of like was interacting with him and kind of like included him on the tour of his house or whatever it is. So the whole thing was ridiculous. It was kind of funny, but like you really could feel the personality of the student coming through. It was not forced by any means. You could tell he put a lot of thought into it. And then the nice thing was too, like, obviously he was a big animator. He got to show that skill in his video as well, which is going to be hard to convey just
Hmm.
through words. So that was a really brilliant, excuse me, it was a really brilliant idea of his. And then like one really small example of another student I could think of that used kind of humor. He loved playing basketball and he was like, "Oh, I'm really great at basketball. Like, I never miss a shot." And then he did like the behind the back shot. I don't know what I was expecting, but it like completely missed. Like it wasn't even close. And then he like turns to the camera. He's like, "Did you get that?" He's like, "Let's cut that out and like post or whatever." And I don't know why. Maybe I just said that was really tired that day, but this like got me. Like I just thought it was really funny just how he acted and the confidence that he had. But then he was just like, "Oh," and once again, I felt like it kind of showed the student in a good way, not like an overly cocky way, but it just like cracked me up a little bit. So it's okay to be funny. It's okay to be, kind of silly throughout. Like the whole thing wasn't silly for either of them, but it definitely did have that humor side of it.
I think it shows like some humility, like
Hmm.
that. Yes, it can be silly, but it could also be like, I'm not going to be this overconfident person and like show you all my cool basketball tricks. It's like, it was almost like a joke on himself of,
Yes. Yeah,
I know I'm
exactly.
not perfect, we say this a lot with writing, but like, what is the watcher like learning about you? What is the viewer like learning about you?
Hmm.
Um, we've had a lot of people incorporate family and kind of do like a welcome to my crib kind of like MTV style, and like this is my mom and she's like in the kitchen kind of like doing whatever, and like you know this is my brother and this is my dad and this is my dog, and like walking around the house kind of talking about different things about them and like what they like to do with them and like their hobbies and things like that.
Yeah.
um I had another student like drive around in his car kind of, and they weren't actually driving while they were recording, but like they kept setting up the tripod in different places in their town because their town like there's so many things about their town that they were incorporated with and volunteer and this and that. um and they kept like kind of just appearing at like different places and like got back in the car and then they would drive there and then like set the camera up, get out of their car, so you can kind of be creative with that too. um I think I've also seen kids like, yeah, just like be silly, and like one kid, like when he was doing, he like dropped the camera and he was like, oops, we'll put that in the bloopers, and like didn't
Yes.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
you know um
And I think like some other good things I've seen too is like they will maybe tell Brown a little bit about like how they're going to interact with the campus too. So one girl was really into like dance. And so she had talked about dance. She showed a video of her doing dance. I think it even had a picture of her when she was really young, when she started, and then her big, I don't remember what it's called, but your big 3 hour recital that a lot of them will do. And those types of things had some clips from there. And then what she did was she like kind of copy and pasted a picture of her into the picture of like the dancers at Brown,
yes.
and kind of pointed herself out, but then it showed how she was already inserting herself into Brown. um I thought that was kind of a creative and cute way, or like putting themselves, editing them onto like the website or whatever for like the lab research or things like that. And I think there's a
Like
lot of cute.
specifically talking about a specific
Mhm.
piece and not just like, yeah, I love to interact, I'm gonna get involved on campus. Well, like how she was showing that she did the research, like knew exactly what the dance program was like called and like all of the things.
Mhm. Yeah, just like I think showed a little bit more interest in the school, and just like you could really picture who she was going to be on campus because she was telling you who she's going to be. I'm trying to think of other cute little things I've seen too. Um, you haven't talked about the Wes Anderson one yet, right?
No.
Okay. I really liked that one. So there was there was one video, it was definitely a couple years ago, but he does it in like the style of like a Wes Anderson film. And so, he'll set the scene in different areas and like the typing will come up. The music kind of fit like a typical like Wes Anderson film. It was really creative. I wouldn't say it was like funny or anything like that. Um, he was just, besides the effects kind of the transitions between like kind of point to point, he really didn't have any movement in his video. He was sitting at his desk, he was talking. So, I mean, that could be a way about doing it. It could just be you sitting at the desk and talking, but having compelling things to say too. And of course, how he edited it really, I think, helped make it be more creative. But he wasn't going out and filming things. He was just staying at home.
Mm-hmm. I think like do what comes naturally to you. I had
Yeah.
one student last year, the video almost looked like you were flipping through a scrapbook. Like she used a lot of
Wow.
editing, like, but that's just something that she loved to do anyway, like use Canva and use like all of this stuff. It was just kind of like a hobby of hers. And it almost was like you're flipping through a scrapbook and like there was these every page, it kind of like was flipping, had pictures of her doing this as a kid or that as a kid or this in high school. And like you really didn't even see the girl at all. It started with her saying, "Hi, my name is," I go to this high school, and then you never saw her again, like on video.
Oh,
um it was like photos of her, clips of her, and like it wasn't actually her speaking. Because I think the one thing I get from a lot of students who are apprehensive of starting this process is they don't want to just talk for 2 minutes and have it recorded and have people see it, which I don't blame them. It's like definitely an uncomfortable thing to do. So there's absolutely ways to not really even be like to be minimal on camera
yes. Yeah. If you're not
and just have like the
comfortable.
voiceover in the background.
100%. You could use pictures, you could use like footage of other things. You definitely
Hmm.
don't have to appear on camera.
Yeah. Um, and there's so many things, and like we obviously do this a lot. We can help. I know sometimes it's students don't always know like the best way to go about things. I had a student who was like, well, I really one of the major things he did was teach music to students like after school, and he really wanted to incorporate some of the images and stuff, but he couldn't just give these photos and put these photos out of like these other students, these younger students. So we kind of brainstormed and collaborated, like, how do we like cover them up with emojis? Like, like how do we still showcase this without like giving up other people's identities? So there's like creative ways that you can do that too.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like there's so much flexibility with this one. I mean, just like with essays, so much flexibility. Find your voice, find what's right for you. If it is like you're using a theme, I've seen kids do like a game show almost where they're asking their family like three questions about, you know, pick from the multiple choice, kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire type style. So then they get to learn a lot of diverse things about um the student, or it could be, you not appearing on screen at all and just doing a voiceover, or it could be you doing a very elaborate editing job. It doesn't matter what, they're not evaluating based on production company or production quality, as we said, but being able to showcase your creativity, if that's what you want to showcase, is perfectly fine to do that. If you'd rather show your problem solving skills, that's perfectly fine to do that too. So there is a lot of options that you can be doing. And I know we talked a lot about like our favorite ones. Those are just our memorable ones. We definitely have had kids who just sit at the desk and talk, and that's fine too. So there's no one right way to do it. I think there's some wrong ways to do it, but there's no one right way to do it.
Yeah. Lean into what feels naturally to you.
Hmm. And I think to that end too, like once you've come up with your idea, once you've filmed it, once you've edited it, review it. Like it sounds so
Yes.
basic, but I feel like sometimes as humans in general, we just want to be done with something. We don't want to look back and we don't want to listen to our voice. We don't want to watch ourselves because we're embarrassed or whatever it is. So we just don't think about it anymore. But we have definitely seen kids who have sent us their videos after they've submitted it or maybe before, and it like cuts off
Hmm.
40 seconds or something. It something went wrong. There's a technical issue, and they would
Yeah.
never unless they reviewed it, or something's cut wrong or the volumes are too low or whatever it might be. So reviewing to make sure that everything is hear like you can hear everything, you can see what you're supposed to see, your lighting is good, if there's no technical problems is super key.
Absolutely. And then, of course, everyone that's submitting this, like you're in high school, you're a teenager. I think there's a very fine line between being funny and almost like maybe borderline inappropriate sometimes. And I've definitely
Yes.
seen students do that too, where they're like, yeah. And it's not like wildly inappropriate, but we're still wanting to be looked at in a professional light. And we can be silly and we can be funny and but really just kind of keeping a lens of, is this silly and funny or is this borderline not something that I want to be looked at professionally? Um, So get some advice. I know some students are like, I'm not showing this to my parents because I'm just embarrassed and I don't want to show it to you. I've had students who don't want to show it to me. Um, Similar reasons, just because
Mhm.
they're embarrassed or whatever, but like really make sure you're either having that lens or showing someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Have someone else check for tone. I feel like that's true for essays too.
Hmm.
Tone is really key, and um, yeah, making sure that you keep your kind of eye on what you want to accomplish with it is really important.
Yes.
Uh,
But this should be fun. This should be like kind of a breath of fresh air with your essays.
yes.
If you're in the thick of essays and you're like, oh, it's just one more thing, like use it as a brain break. Like scroll through your camera roll, look for pictures of you and your friends, look for pictures of you playing, a sport or whatever you love to do. And like, just kind of start putting them in an album. And it should be like a nice kind of, like I said, like a brain break.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully like a brush of creative, like fresh air almost,
Hmm.
uh, that you can reset your brain, have a little bit of fun with. Honestly, talk to your parents about like the videos and pictures too. Like they might know of some really good
Yeah.
things you can be including and know better about what they took when you were a small little child. And there's some pretty cute videos we've seen of kids when they were like small and already expressing a desire to become a doctor or something along those lines, or talking about how excited they are to do something and the student is still really excited about it 10 years later, or things like that. So
Yeah.
very
Like you
fun
could have been a doctor for Halloween and not even remember, or you could have went to like a science like museum when you were small and like again don't really remember, but maybe there's pictures of you. Uh,
yeah.
so chat with your parents about it, chat with your family about it. Sometimes like I think there's really good places to incorporate parents into, and this is definitely one of them.
This is a perfect example. Yeah, this could definitely be kind of a family project if you want it to be.
Hmm.
And then once you're like done with it, as we talked about, review it before you submit. There is like a there are a few different ways that you can submit your
Like
video
format
introduction,
wise. Yeah.
through the like Brown portal. Once you apply, you'll get access to your Brown applicant portal, and then there you'll see the option to do it, to upload your brief video introduction. Says to do it within a week or so of receiving your application acknowledgement email from Brown University. So just make sure to do that in advance. And then if you don't do it through the portal, you can also do it through Glimpse. So Glimpse, I hadn't really heard of before this past, like last year's cycle, but it seems to be becoming more popular. Duke allows students to do Glimpse video. I think a couple other schools do now, but essentially, Glimpse is a platform that allows you to upload a singular video introduction. You can record it as many times as you want, but you're not allowed to like cut and make edits and things like that. So it is a lot more casual overall. So that's also an option about how you can be submitting your essay. So if you wanted to include like pictures and multiple locations, Glimpse would not be right for you, but you could just do the Brown applicant portal instead.
Yeah, I think that's what most of my students do
Yeah,
or have done.
same. Cool. Anything else you can think about for the Brown video?
No, you kind of mentioned this. There's a handful of other schools that also do accept video recordings. Like I take the same advice, even if they're optional. I go ahead and do it. I think it's worth the time for sure. Um, so if you're listening, you're not applying to Brown, but you're applying somewhere else that does accept it, I'd go for it.
Hmm.
Great way to kind of be seen.
Yeah, and reuse it. Like Wash U has that video. University of Chicago, I think,
Hmm.
video. Of course, you might have like Brown specific things that you might need to change that out, but you could potentially be using a really similar um,
Yeah,
video for all of these. So I know we talked a lot about Brown, same kind of vibe for other essays or for other schools too.
absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, start working now. Work ahead.
Yeah.
Our advice always is start working
Start
now.
early.
Um,
If you've listened to any of our podcasts, that's kind
yeah,
of all
you'll
we say
know.
every time.
Should be like our motto. But yeah, start working now. And you'll have a much stronger video, hopefully. And then as always, if you need help, we can absolutely help those types of things at Moon Prep. If it's planning your script, helping you edit it, just like helping you brainstorm ideas too, we can absolutely help with those types of things. Cool. But I think that's it for us
think
on the
so.
Brown video. Well, thanks everyone for sticking with us. Hopefully you learned some good things about the Brown admissions video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But if not, we will see you next time.